guess what strikes me, what impresses me a lot about the show is how scale behaves in the context of this show, and how the building is always, from my familiarity with the Pulitzer, the building is always such a protagonist in the exhibition program here in general. And there's an unbelievable sensibility to that here, but done in a completely different way than I've seen in the many exhibitions that I've seen here. In the sense of there is this kind of cathedral-like nature to this space, and Getty has the fact that in Getty's mind, his first instinct was to make a little living room in a cathedral, and to actually be able to pull it off with these objects that manage to combine both this kind of epic spirituality, both in terms of them being sometimes so old and so and so precious, but also so small and so few of them, and so humble in that sense. And so there's this kind of relationship between this idea of the spiritual, of the divine, of the celestial, and the idea of the kind of humility of these things you put on your mantelpiece, you know. So that entrance, this entrance way, I mean, the show for me really has this story that's being told, like all exhibitions, and from the kind of the parlor, right? The kind of the where people gather before the event takes place, and how the event is clearly the woman who is kind of the main usher on to the entrance, the welcome to the show, the sphinx of the show is clearly like, okay, all these people do not matter. What we care about is this kind of place of presence and absence that happens, yes, with and around the body, but with a facelessness and with a kind of without the hubbub and the noise of the personalities. And then you get to the window, the fireplace, the book with the table, the fruit on the table, and the coffee table with the vases and that you would put either on your coffee table or your mantelpiece. And there's that. So you have this kind of a beautiful obviousness about that, but also a sense of humor. And for me, of course, I've always thought of Getty's work as being very connected to a particular sense of humor that he has, and I think this show carries it forward in this very unique way of not being like laugh out loud funny, but being like kind of puncturing the ability for us to be completely in awe of like this kind of divine blah. No, I think that gesture is in the room, but there's a humor in it that doesn't allow us to it's like, yes, but yes, this is a shrine, yes, the box gallery is a kind of temple type structure, but it's also a kind of silly puppet show, and it kind of combines both of those things. So I mean, for me, that sensibility of being able to at the same time evoke the kind of this idea of the celestial, and even the word epiphany, right? It has this flighty feel to it, and to somehow use the word epiphany, but then do it with this domestic, the idea of a domestic epiphany. I mean, those two words, putting those two words next to each other is kind of a contradiction. I think the show manages to do beautifully well. And yeah, the Moholy-Nagy picture for me is the kind of is the object that locks it all together. Like it's all these elements, and then when you get to that room and everything is centered into the smallest object in the room or in the show maybe, and there you are. You're in a domestic place. You're in a small scale domestic space with this presence of people with these shoes just kind of there on the ready, and somehow the fact that can play a protagonist role is something that this show I think achieves, which is unbelievably difficult to do. And it's also, and then this relationship to display. I mean, as a curator, I always learn from artists. That's a lesson I learned a long time ago, that artists are the best teachers in the world. And so for me, seeing this exhibition is an extraordinary opportunity to learn how to think about display, because I think this exhibition is completely about display. How prominently the armatures, the golden stands that he's had constructed are about putting something on display, and how the role that those play so visually and so on the forefront. Because an exhibition as a whole, all exhibitions are different types of armatures holding objects and presenting them to an audience in a particular way, and have them have a particular relationship to each other, and have them dance particular dance. And so it's all of this is one active display. And so his ability to kind of take that to its kind of next step, but do that not in the kind of epic, spectacular display as in spectacle, but display as in like, let me hold something in place. That's what an exhibition is. Let me hold something very fragile in place. A constellation of objects is a very fragile thing that is disturbed all the time by bodies and people, and an exhibition tries to hold that in place. And so there's, again, connecting back to the title of trying to keep still something that's much bigger than itself, and that the act of display is that attempt of trying to hold that into place, and these kind of gold hands holding on to everything in the show, I think is a touch of absolute brilliance.